Hey guys, it's MrPopper coming to you with the patch 10.25 Gnar guide update. And for the question of the day, what matchups are you struggling with and giving you a hard time? Comment down below your answers, and in my next patch update video, I will go over the top 3 choices. We have a few changes and some clarification to builds and some matchups and some bugs to cover today. Let's first start with the bug that's going on with Gnar. There is a bug with his Rage and his W proc mechanic on Mini Gnar. So to start this off, let's spawn a enemy dummy. And as I'm autoing, I get a proc of my W passive every time. As you can see, it counts to 1, counts to 2, counts to 3, but as soon as I hit 100 rage, right now, I can no longer proc my W. I can't, if I use any of my abilities, it'll just automatically transform me, but right now that is a big bug. It can make you lose out some kills, some extra damage. It's pretty much saying you should not be a Mini Gnar now, and you should just transform anyway since there's no real point. Hopefully this will be fixed soon, and I mean, Gnar's gonna be really hard to play with this since he's missing a lot of damage in his kit from this. You could get potentially 2 extra W procs when you are at 100 rage, and maybe even a 3rd W proc if you have an attack speed build going on anyway. But as you can see, it's consistent. It happens every time, and my W procs fall off too. I can't proc my W anymore. So hopefully again that can get changed and we can see some improvement on our right side for this bug. Next thing I want to go over is Gnar's best item or mythic item and Gnar's primary build. So I've been playing 90% of my games with this one item called Stridebreaker. It has been an insane item for Gnar. It gives attack speed, it gives attack damage, it gives some HP, and some ability haste, which are all really useful for Gnar. And it's a lot of AD for, you know, a bruiser item too. Like, remember last season, Cleaver only gave 40 AD. This one gives 50. Cleaver didn't give any attack speed. Cleaver gave 400 HP. Which wasn't really useful too much, but this one only gives 300, but still that's a good amount for what you need. And then 10 ability haste, which is less than Cleaver, again, last season's Cleaver, but again, cooldown reduction isn't like super important on our, it's just a convenience at most usually. But the cool part about this item is its mythic passive will grant you 3% move speed every time you complete a legendary item. Which you will feel later on in the game. You'll feel really fast. You'll feel like on top of the world. It's really insane. And the active, which is a very small one, I'm gonna turn on auto refresh cooldown so I can just spam it. But it's a very small dash. As you can see, this part right here is very small, and it's a fixed distance. You can't like adjust the range on it. But the AOE on the slow is very big. It's very easy to hit champions with. Like, this should hit him, right? It's very easy to hit people with it, and it's a decent amount of slow. I believe it's like 30% or something like that. No, it's 60% decaying. And it's affected by ability haste, so if you, depending on the build you do, it can be on a much lower cooldown, but on average, the cooldown for the Stridebreaker for the build I primarily use is roughly around 18 seconds, 16 to 18 seconds, which isn't a big deal. It's still a pretty good cooldown. And the really strong part about this item is the implications you can use with it. So Gnar's jump is fixed. You can't do anything while you're in the jump. With the exception of the animation cancel, you can use abilities if you time it right. Well, with this item, you can now cancel your jump. You can cancel Mega Gnar jump. You can cancel just normal Mega Gnar jump. You can use it to extend your R. And you can even throw the animation cancel in with it as well if you really want to. It's not necessary. but you can do some pretty cool things. And you can get some really quick bursts out of it too. And yes, this item is more consistent in my opinion than Triforce. Triforce gives more damage, but this one will help you survive more often because the active slow. The dash can help you get out of certain skill shots such as Jin W, is his W? It's his Jin Snare or Pantheon Q or Nidalee Spear, or like those skill shots have a pretty small hitbox, and if you just micro adjust just a little bit, you can dodge it. This will be insane for stuff like that. And on other things, you can also use it to dodge, like not as often, but maybe like Orn R Part 2, or Aurelia Stun, you know, stuff like that. It's a really strong item, and I highly recommend playing it. It's my favorite build, and I also have been consistently doing very well with it. In fact, I even played it into Wukong, which is one of Gnar's harder matchups in the top lane right now, because he has multiple ways to get to you, and he's really like high damage when it's hard to interact with him. Like if you get into his auto range, he'll E onto you, and then he gets his attack speed steroid from his E, and then he just out trades you, so you have to you're forced to run away. But then once you get your auto space in between him, and you can try to like re-engage on that, he can just hit his W now, and then he can either use that to disengage or, you know, walk back towards you and engage again. And he also has his R1 and R2, which can and will cancel your jump half the time. It's just something to keep a lookout for. Wukong's a very hard matchup. I should have a video coming out where I do beat a Wukong pretty hard. Like I just play lane phase pretty safely. He killed me once early, I killed him once from a gank, and then the rest of the game I was just like playing safe and trying to play for the map, and I ended up like solo carrying the game because of it. And the other hard matchup for Gnar right now is Renekton. Renekton has inherent tinkiness from his ultimate. He has a lot of sustain from his Q. He has his double dash, which shreds armor if it's empowered. And he also has his auto attack stun on his W, which does a lot of damage and can proc stuff like PTA by itself. Renekton has a lot of damage, and it's really hard to play against him as a Gnar, since you are a short-ranged top laner for the most part. You only have 400 attack range level 1 at level 18. Right now I have 459 attack range at level 11, right? Every level I'll gain roughly like 6 to 7 attack range, capping out at 500 attack range. And even then, it's not that much, right? For like builds right now on Gnar, I have two primary builds. There's the one I go most games, which is my kite build, which is good for split pushing and good for catching people out and really strong for dueling. You can even use it to duel a late game Kayle, because Kayle plays to like just auto you down and chase you down. Well, she can't chase you down because you're significantly faster than her, and you're going to be pretty tanky with the build you do too. The build goes something like Stridebreaker Rush into your tier 2 boots, into your Wit's End, and at this point I personally like building Zeal and Winged Moon plates at the same time, and Zeal did just get buffed, and so did Phantom Dancer and other Zeal items to be cheaper. But this item is now 1050 gold instead of 1200, which is really good for Gnar. It gives 7% move speed, which is really good. And then you buy your Winged Moon plates, which it builds into your Dead Man's or Force of Nature later on. And just those two items, it gives you attack speed and HP and 12% move speed. Again, you're trying to hard kite, you just become so much faster with these two items. And after that, you can decide what you really need to buy. If you have enough gold to full buy an item, I'd recommend doing that over buying components, because a full item will always be better. But if you can't full buy an item and you have like 2,000 gold or a little less than 2,000 gold, these are very strong and very easy to build into. Especially the Winged Moon plates being just 800 gold, giving you 5% free move speed. After that, you can decide if am I strong, do I need protection, do I need more damage. If I need more damage, Phantom Dancer is a really strong item in my opinion right now. Its new passive no longer gives you a shield, instead it gives you pretty much, it doubles the stats on the item, and it goes from a 40% attack speed item to an 80% attack speed item, which is insane for Gnar. Gnar scales really strong with attack speed, and then the move speed also will double as well, going from 7% to 14%, and gives you the ghosting passive, which lets you like not be creep blocked ever, which is not too important, but it's a really strong item. You can complete that after if you need more damage. It's really strong in my opinion. The other options are if you need more magic resist on top of your wit's end, or if your team has no magic resist options, I wouldn't recommend going this. I'll tell you another item in a bit, but you can go Dead Man's Plate afterwards. It'll help you traverse the map more. It gives you like 100 extra move speed when fully stacked up, or 60 extra move speed when fully stacked up. And it does some extra damage once you you're on your first auto, which is pretty good for burst damage. It's a really strong HP and armor item, and it will let you just run around the map just that much quicker. And if you do decide to go this next, instead of finishing your Zeal item next, you can always just buy another wing move plate for that move speed effect, because building Phantom Dancer, you can either get 25% more move speed, or you can get a little tankier. Usually the tankier option is better. So you can just buy wing move plates, then you can decide, do I need more magic resist or do I need more damage? I can go either one of these, and then you can just finish your build there. So obviously there will be games where you can't go a certain item, such as maybe Dead Man's isn't going to be useful because they have like a Twisted Fate, and running away isn't going to be too easy because he can just pour onto you really quick and then you're stunned, and then you could possibly die because of that one stun. So maybe QSS would be better in that matchup, or like their enemy team is lacking magic damage, so like even going Wit's End would be too hard. So instead you can go for your more normal items. You can get your Cleaver, which is still a really good item. A bit more situational this season because it doesn't offer you move speed, which was a very useful thing. Kiting on Gnar is very, very important part of his core identity, and that's what this build mostly focuses around. But the new effect on it is really good against tanks and shredding armor, so it will help your team do more damage to their tanks or people who build armor. And it will give you extra damage if you fully shred someone, if you've been attacking them for a while, right? So that's one option. Another option could be Blade of the Rune King. If you just want more attack speed, more damage. You're not going to get too much tankier with this, so I haven't been building it too much. There's other options I'd rather build. You can also get Death's Dance, which is probably one of the more common things you should be building if they are lacking magic damage, because it's such a strong item, especially when you're Mega Gnar. It gives you like 50 attack damage, 40 armor, 15 ability haste, and it gives you the Ignore Pain passive and Defy passive. Ignore Pain says 35% if you're melee or 15% if you're range of physical damage, only physical damage you take is over 3 seconds, and if you get a takedown, or which is a kill or an assist within the last 2 seconds, you can cleanse the Ignore Pain stacks, heal for an extra 10% of your total health, and gain 30% move speed. So it will really help you like pop off against AD comps, which is a really good replacement for Wit's End if they are lacking magic damage. So I would do something like that, and Cleaver, if they are, Cleaver would be like a finishing item. I think Cleaver Rush is not the greatest right now. There's just better items and better things Gnar can do with those items. There is a second build, which I call more of a bruiser build. So obviously you're still going Stridebreaker. But this build will be focusing more on HP, armor, and magic resist. You're going to be a bit more durable. Your goal is to be pretty much the front line for your team and help your team catch out people. So Stridebreaker already does that on its own, so you can focus more around the tank stats. Or bruiser stats. So pretty much most HP options are really strong right now. If you go to all items and just go to HP, you can easily build items like Cleaver, which is probably going to be one of the more core items for this build, since you're going to want the HP and the cooldown reduction in this build is going to be more important, because again, you're a frontline tank, your goal is to catch people out, and the more cooldown reduction you have, the more times you can use Stridebreaker, the more times you can use your abilities. It'll just be very useful. So this is going to be very, very strong in this build, more specifically. Your boots of choice will still be like plated steel caps or mercury treads. So let's just pick one of those up. And then you can go options like Randuins if they have like high crit damage. Well, I have the builds here right now. My brothers came in and dropped me off some Arizonas. He's a good brother, dude. But here's the first build, an example full build, which is primarily what I go every single game. And for the kite build as well, I want to point in, you can go Swifties if the game allows it. They don't have a lot of auto attackers, but they're lacking CC, or their CC is very dodgeable, such as like Xerath E or Vel'Koz knockup, stuff like that. Swifties are definitely a decent option for those games. But for the Bruiser build, you can go like your Death Stance for, again, against heavier AD comps. You can go Deadmans for more kiting, or you can go Randuins for the anti-crit and damage reduction it offers. And it also gives you ability haste, which is really good. So does Death Stance. Deadmans doesn't, so that's something to keep in mind, but it's still a very strong option for this build. For magic resist options, I never go Spirit Visage anymore. I think it's just not a great magic resist item on Gnar, and even last season it was just okay, but that's because you had a lot of sustain options. So this season there aren't as many sustain options other than, you know, Ravenous Hunter. So like you can go your Maw, which scales off HP now, so you can easily get like an 800 point magic shield against AP heavy comps. You can go Wit's End for games where you want to kite a little bit harder, or you can go Force of Nature if you want to tank a bit more and kite a little bit harder as well. You do have build finishers on this build, because this build is more build for the game rather than the champ. And you do have your 2 healing cut items if you need, if they auto really hard and you can't really avoid their damage, Thornmail will be better. If you can avoid their damage, such as like an Aatrox or a Nasus that you can kite, Chempunk Chainsword may be just a bit better for those matchups. Another magic resist option that you have is Abyssal Math, but I would never really think about rushing it, since there's just other really great magic resist items. Maybe as a build finisher, it'd be really good to deal that extra 10% burst damage, or I don't know how to say it, 10%. It's like PTA proc. At all damage sources increased by 10% pretty much for that target. You also have Sterax. If you don't build Maw, Sterax is a really good option, or you have Blade of the Rune King just for extra split push power and extra dueling power. And, you know, like a full build option for this would be like if you're building on the lower HP side with Death Stance and Maw, you can build something like this. If you need one more HP, you can replace Death Stance with like your Deadmans or Randuins, and Maw with like a Force of Nature or Abyssal Mask. But yeah, these are two really insane strong builds. That I would recommend like trying more of if you really like kiting, if you really like playing around the map and just running around as fast as you can to rotate and play for objectives and split push. This build would be really fun and really strong, and as long as you never overcommit, like get too close to them, and you just like keep kiting them as much as you can, this build will always be strong and always be really, really fun to play. And then if kiting is not the way for that game, they have their Quinn, whose ultimate will always outspeed you, or like I said, Twisted Fate, who can just pour onto you and stun you for whatever reason. Champions like that, this build may be a little bit better. The Bruiser build is also stronger into champions such as Zed or Jhin, who have like a lot more burst damage, where just trying to burst them down is really difficult. And that should be it for those. I want to go over runes just a little bit. So Gnar has been able to use like primarily all runes every single day, or every single patch. For the most part, whether it's Comet or Electrocute or Hail of Blades or Fleet Footwork or PTA or Conqueror or whatever you decide, whatever you think is good. It usually works out for the most part. Well, I'm down to only using 2 runes for the most part, and it's Fleet Footwork or Conqueror, like almost every game now. If I take something else, it's usually because I don't feel like playing Normally, I just want to play off meta, and I like playing off meta for the most part. But if I'm trying to be a sweaty tryhard, which your boy Popper is, I like taking fleet footwork if I plan to do the kite build, because the extra sustain is really useful, the extra move speed is very useful, and the other runes are very good. So Triumph will help you sustain a little bit more after you get a kill. It'll also give you extra gold. Alacrity is really strong, gives you more damage because attack speed equivocates damage for the most part. 4 Gnar, every time you get an auto off, you're that much closer to your W proc. But you can replace this with Legend Tenacity. If for certain CC comps they have a Galio that's taking Predator and running at you, maybe you take Tenacity for that, or they have Twisted Fate, you take Tenacity for that. They have whatever like CC on the enemy team comp that you think is going to be hard to avoid most of the game that can result into a death. Tenacity can be useful for those matchups. The other rune is Coup de Grace, which is a preference. You can take Coup de Grace or Last Stand. If they have champions like Cho'Gath or Riven that thrive on killing low HP targets, I'd recommend taking Coup de Grace. You don't want to be low HP, but if they don't have champions like that where you can survive easily at low HP, Last Stand will be a significantly stronger rune. And for your secondary runes, I recommend just taking Demolish and Bone Plating most games, because Demolish will help you split push harder, and Bone Plating will help you survive burst a little bit more. You can go into like AP matchups. You can go Null Orb into Celerity. Celerity is really strong with this build because you do build a lot of move speed, but at some point it is overkill. So most of the time, Demolish and Bone Plating is just good enough. Your other build option for Bruiser Gnar, you can take the same runes. You can take these for the Bruiser Gnar too. There's no problem with that. But if you want to do a little bit more damage and be a little bit more healthier for the most part, you can take Conqueror, just because Stridebreaker does help you stack it up a bit quicker. And I'd recommend taking Last Stand more often with Conqueror and this rune page in general, because the Bruiser build does have a little bit more sustain options in the build. Whether it's Blade of the Rune King, or you can also build Hydra. I don't really like building Hydra that much. I think it's just too much gold for what the item does for Gnar. But Last Stand and Conqueror is really strong with it, especially when you take Taste of Blood or Ravenous Hunter. You're just trying to survive and sustain as much as you can through cooldown reduction, abilities, and damage. So yeah, this should be it for my 10.25 guide update. Make sure to drop a like, drop a follow, and subscribe. And if you guys can, come over to Trovo and watch my stream. I should have a link down in the description. And I'll catch you guys some other time. Peace out.